Hello, this is Eric Lasser with Alki Moves, and in yesterday's blog post before the video I had mentioned that I don't stretch. I don't stretch before I run, and I usually don't stretch after I run. Today I'd like to address why I don't stretch before I run. So to help out with the demonstration, I have borrowed one of Dennis's legs. And so here is his leg, and back of the femur we have our hamstrings, and then back of the calf muscle we have our gastrocnemius and soleus, otherwise known as calf muscles. So these muscles, they cross the knee joint and ankle joint, and together they function as one huge spring that helps move us forward. And so thinking of the spring analogy, if we take a spring, before we use the spring, and we pull the ends apart, pull that spring apart, the spring's ability to come back to its shape have been lessened. It's been weakened. It's going to take a little time for it to come back and be useful to its full extent. So muscles are very similar in that if we are pulling them apart, we're actually taking away some of their power, some of their strength, some of their ability to be used step of our run. Because actually, if we land correctly on our foot, we can use up to 30% of the energy that we landed as a spring to propel us forward into the next step. So when we stretch, we're actually weakening our ability to spring forward on the next step. The second reason why I don't stretch before I run is something that I learned 20 years ago when I was in Massage school, over 20 years ago. And we studied a lot of anatomy and kinesiology, how muscles work. It's really simple. I like to think of the analogy of a seat belt in a car. If we were to get into a car accident, hopefully our seat belt will spring into action and shorten the leash and keep us from hurting ourselves. The same thing happens with our muscles. We have something inside of our muscle called the Golgi tendon apparatus, and its job, its primary function, is to save the organism, save the muscle from being torn apart. So whenever it senses the muscle fibers are being pulled apart, its job is to shorten the muscle. So when we are stretching before we run or before we do any activity, we're actually telling our muscles to get shorter. And shorter muscles actually work less efficiently than if we had long muscles. So again, stretching before running can be hazardous to your running. It can cause injuries, it can cause you to run slower, and it just doesn't feel good. I've had 30 years ago when I was running in track and cross country, it was 33 years ago when I was running in high school, we did lots of stretching. And I tell you, I was the slowest runner on the team because I really got into stretching. And it wasn't until many, many years later when I realized the folly of what I was doing. And now that I know better, my running feels so much better, so much freer. So just try this out. Next time you go running, don't stretch. Just find different ways to warm up your muscles. You can even look at the pose video that I put on my blog yesterday. Kind of a quick, short way of how to prepare your muscles for action. So again, this is Eric Lasser with Alki Moves.